Now, kind of want to move on to the history, I guess, of the 90s Bulls, as in like why I feel like they're the greatest dynasty of all time, right? I mean, just look at how the Bulls and Mike went through the Eastern Conference during that time. I was reading some things on like Reddit and stuff, and people were trying to make the accusation that the Eastern Conference has always been weak compared to the Western Conference. Not necessarily. In the 80s, you could argue that the Eastern Conference was definitely better than the West, right? You got teams like, Philadelphia, the Celtics, you got the early 80s with the Milwaukee Bucks. Then you got the Detroit Pistons. And then you get the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, there's a lot of great competition going on in the Eastern Conference. In the West, not many people bring it up, but the Showtime Lakers were beating teams in the first round. They were like barely winning like 40 games. Or like 40, maybe 45, 40. It's like the mid 40s to low 40s, right? So they're playing them in the best of 5 in the first round, right? I mean, it's a different case for the Eastern Conference, where they're playing against, teams like, Chicago Bulls, where they're mid 50s, but, Michael Jordan was, dynamic and scoring and everything, and leading his teams in stats. As time goes on, when the Bulls, mature enough to be like a more competitive team, they just kept on rising up to the Eastern Conference Finals. The rivalry with the Detroit Pistons, and then once they hit the finals, that's just when the legacy starts. I mean, the Chicago Bulls are the only team in NBA history, if I remember correctly, to have no players on that team with championship experience. No championship experience. And they win their title. That has never happened at all in NBA history, unless it was, I guess, the first 2 teams that have won, that played in the finals, right? Because if you played in the finals the first time, no one has championship experience. And that's why, and that's why, if you think about it, like, that kind of stat, or it's not really a stat, but, that kind of like, trivia is interesting. Like, no team out everybody in NBA history. There's never been a team with no championship experience whatsoever from any players on any position of the team to go to the finals and win a championship. Right? I mean, what do you see like in teams that are like bring in vets? You usually see like, talking points saying that, they have championship experience, the vet presence is gonna push, the younger guys into, performing well. I mean, not for the Bulls, right? They have like a different kind of mentality, with Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson and Scottie Pippen, right? They beat the Lakers, then they beat the Portland Trail Blazers. Not much people give credit to the Detroit Pistons and the Portland Trail Blazers, right? Detroit Pistons were, underrated team that should have won 3 in a row, if not for Isaiah Thomas, having an ankle injury. The Portland Trail Blazers should have went to the finals 3 in a row, but they lost to the Lakers. They go 2 in a row. Later on, by facing the Detroit Pistons, and then they lose to the Bulls. So, they go 2 in a row. They should have won 3 in a row, but instead, Magic and the Lakers went in 91. So those are all-time, underrated teams. Clyde Drexler is an underrated player, and people want to brush him off aside and then put in James Harden. I mean, as a top 5 shooting guard of all time, I don't agree. I mean, I feel like guys like, it'll be Mike, Kobe, Wade, number 4, probably Jerry West, and number 5, probably Clyde Drexler. I mean, dude, consistent winning, to win the three-peat is already very difficult enough, right? Chicago Bulls win the three-peat 2 times in the 90s, right? They're the greatest dynasty of all time because of the modern day era of free agency and trades happened during that time. Boston Celtics, Bill Russell era, there's no trades, there's no player movement, and it's just 8 teams, right? So if you had a good team already, you're going to be a good team next season. And that theory applies to the championship teams. If you have a championship team, 1 year, there's no movement whatsoever. You're going to have a championship team every year, basically. So it was dependent on, GM activities and player progression, I guess you can say. I mean, that's why, guys like Jerry West and Elgin Baylor have the records that they have. It's because, those players were all-time great players. And they would get to the finals, but they would just meet against, just a better team every year. I mean, you're better than every team in your conference except for the finals opponent. So, of course, you have 1 for 8, and I don't know, Elgin Baylor was 0 for 7 or something. Some kind of ridiculous number. But, Elgin Baylor, is obviously all-time great. Jerry West, you can also say all-time great, top 10, shooting guard, point guard. I mean, whatever you would say. So, Bulls have to face that. Face, 30 teams, trades, free agency and whatnot, contracts with cap space. I mean, they get to deal with all that stuff, and they succeeded. Chicago Bulls, their success, 6-0 in the finals. Top 3 defense. Every championship season. MVP, majority of the season, all NBA defense. The accolades for the Bulls speak for themselves. I mean, there was a crazy stat where Michael Jordan and the Bulls, they didn't lose 3 in a row in their championship seasons, ever. And they had this absurd home record where they're only lose it was single digit loss, if I remember correctly. There's just such crazy, crazy records for the Bulls, and the amount of competition the Bulls faced in the finals, as well as the road to the finals. I mean, it speaks for itself. When they got to the finals, they were playing against 60+ win teams. So, not to mention those 60+ win teams were also top tier defensive teams as well. So, I mean, Bulls' resume speaks for themselves. Michael Jordan's resume speaks for themselves, and hopefully this documentary shows the amount of turmoil that the Bulls went in their last season, as well as the success, of what, Michael Jordan and company had to do to prevail in their championship ending season.